On and we're back. I'm Rocket Kirchner, Part 3, Talking Baseball 2015 Revisited, DB1, John Hockenberry, and Madman Ken. As you saw in the last segment, Hock laid out as quick as he could in 8 minutes. It was not easy. This knuckleball, fastball velocity, this whole thing with I can understand now more why you really, the emphasis had to be on just figuring ways to bunt and get on base, and it's not as easy to hit home runs. I did read a book called Ty and the Babe, which came out last year, and Ty Cobb was really adamant that he felt like that real baseball was slipping away because of lack of a better word, the live ball era in the 20s with Babe Ruth. And I like, maybe you haven't read the book, but I know you know a lot about Cobb and Ruth, and mostly Cobb. My first question to Hock would be, did the fans as well as the players view it as a different game?
Well, and they went crazy. They loved it.
Yeah,
and this also set up a vicious cycle, because as we talked about the early ball fields, they didn't have outfield seating. So Ruth starts hitting home runs, people start copying that. The home run becomes more of a feature of the game. It's very exciting. A lot of ballyhoo, the 20s. Baseball is really the only major sport that everybody can go to, boxing and, horse racing is, baseball is the popular sport.
Yeah.
So then they start building outfield seating, which takes away some of the outfield dimension, because a lot of these parks were built around city dimensions. They couldn't expand. So the parks were refitted and it got a little smaller, so you get more fans in there, more home runs, more fans, more home runs,
Yeah.
And of course, the other thing is that the dead ball type game never really went away. For example, the Washington Senators won the World Series in 1924 on 22 home runs. The whole team hit 22 home runs all year.
Oh, yeah, but you got Walter Johnson.
Well, they had Walter Johnson, and they had good pitching, and they stole 116 bases, which was second. I think it was second, and they were sixth in the league in runs and number one in pitching. So teams also went from stealing 200 to 300 bases a year, 150 to 300 bases a year,
ways to
something.
Get around the bases.
To 30, 40, 50, 80 bases a year.
Ken?
I got two very, very simple questions for the audience that's interested. Very, very basic. Who came up with the term dead ball? To call it the dead ball era?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
And then the term spitball.
Yeah.
I mean, was it called a spitball, or did they use a different term back then?
Well,
because the origin of terms is fascinating to me.
They load it up.
Right.
I mean, they actually, and this is the heyday of everybody's chewing something,
right.
Tobacco,
right.
All kinds of stuff, licorice and all that.
Right. And the dead ball era, were there actually games where there was only one ball used throughout the whole game?
Well, according to
these are basic questions.
I think William Curran, the guy that wrote Big Sticks, says that before, certainly before 1920, and probably for some years after, like maybe well through the 20s, the souvenir baseball is unknown. I mean, an usher collected the ball from the fan who retrieved and threw it back out on the field.
So in actuality, when a ball player would hit during the dead ball era, when a home run was hit, the fan brought it back on the field?
Was
it mandatory?
An usher, yeah, I mean, an usher would go over there and retrieve it. Balls that were hit out of stadiums were sometimes sought. People would go find the person that found it, and they would give them, $20 and some tickets, and then Ruth would autograph the ball, and it would, I mean, there were Ruth home runs that were retrieved from kids out on the street.
But this is like to me
given like a couple tickets.
But this is like tomato. It's a tomato. It's flat as a tomato.
So
by the third inning,
you got this ball here, this baseball here.
Solid.
Would this thing really be mush after a while in a game?
Have you ever played softball?
Yes.
Then in most leagues that I played in, at least, the offense provided its own balls.
Sure.
Remember, the hitting team
Yes.
had to serve up 3 balls to the
Right,
umpire.
right.
Okay.
When they that is to prevent the defense from making you hit a ball that's been hit a billion times
Okay.
and won't go anywhere.
But okay, my point
same
is this: my dad's is a physicist. So is the ball getting so soft that when the bat hits it, the ball could actually go around the bat and then fly? Is it that soft?
Well,
Did the
okay.
ball were the balls allowed to be that soft?
Well, no, they weren't.
I know.
I mean, they were well made. They were made to exact specifications. They were
Okay.
made by the A.B. Reach company, I think,
Oh,
is who
okay.
made them, and they were
All right.
wound with machines by I think at least the early 20s.
Yeah.
And what they did is they also did bounce tests because the balls had to meet standards for resiliency and bounce.
Okay.
So bounce tests, things
Okay.
like this, right? Okay. Well, they found, according to Curran, is that the studies showed that even after one bounce, a ball marginally lost a little resiliency. So the more times you hit it, it's not that it's mush, it's just that it becomes a little less responsive every time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hence now we are in the
Like
21st century.
Sam Crawford said that balls would come bounding out to the outfield like jumping beans because they were mashed flat on one side.
And then so
It
John,
was either
wow.
Crawford
That's
or
wild,
Davis.
man.
John, then
It's the
actually-
Wild West of
it's in,
baseball.
Right, but
the
so-
glory of their times.
So, and here's
where
my
you
other
find
question. I'm keeping the questions very basic because it's fascinating. In your opinion, John, who was the greatest spitball thrower in baseball?
I think you got to give it to Ed Walsh.
Ed Walsh.
He won 41 games, I think 40 or
The great-
41 games for 40 games, I think, for the White Sox. one
Really?
year.
In
Yeah.
your estimation, I
What's
mean,
more
they
smoking?
they couldn't do the mile per hour thing back then. How fast do you have any idea how fast his balls? Ed Walsh.
I don't know about him.
Was-
I know that some of the fastballs. I mean, you talk about people like Rube Waddell or somebody. They
Sure.
were probably able to
Okay.
get up
No doubt.
at least into mid-90s. I mean, I don't know if they were throwing 100 back then, but
You can get a spitball from
well,
that?
no, I think Rube Waddell, his fastball would probably be in.
So
the
for anybody
mid-90s.
out there, people are they go.
It would
"What
be like a split finger pitch
Okay.
in its effect.
So in actuality, this is Rock had mentioned this term. So a spitball is in actuality a knuckleball going at fastball velocity.
Well, I characterized it by that because
That's-
what I'm
that's-
saying is that it doesn't have a lot of rotation.
Right. Oh
And
yeah.
the thing
and
about
and that
any
aggravates
kind
batters.
of a
That
pitch
aggravates
Oh,
that
batters.
doesn't have the reason that you get like a changeup has so much movement.
Yeah.
Is a changeup is a pitch that sort of gets
Sure.
pushed out.
Yes.
Sort of skates.
Exactly.
And it sort of goes. It doesn't. The rotation is what makes the flight true. So you want some rotation, but not a lot.
Right.
Like a knuckleball only rotates
Oh.
maybe 3/4
Most
of a
aggravating
rotation or
pitch
one
in the-
rotation or something. And if it does any more than
The
that,
most
Okay,
it's
now wait a
on
minute.
the tee.
In light of this,
The most aggravating.
so here's
pitch there is.
here's the frustration on statisticians and people like Bill James and everybody else. How do you compare? Should we even compare stats if we look at the overall batting average of Cobb above everybody and Jackson a couple rings down the line of all of the baseball? A lot of these guys were in the dead ball era, and can that be compared to live ball? Should we just not compare it? Because people still say, well, oh, you just broke a record from that era. I mean, it's emphasized a lot, You've broken this record in stealing and this record in hitting and of that era. Whether it's Walter Johnson or Cobb or any of these guys. If you break a record from that, so is that fair to use those stats to compare? Can we compare these stats?
Yeah. Well, I think what the sabermetricians do is they make adjustments for ballparks and conditions, and they try to isolate certain factors in their analysis of things. So when they talk about wins above replacement or people's relative abilities against their average player and that kind of thing, I think that some of those things can be done. So you can kind of normalize some statistics across eras a little bit. You can kind of compensate for that certain things were emphasized. Like for example, in the dead ball era, in 1908, you've got 1.7 errors per game. I mean, I just took the number of errors committed in the whole league divided by the games.
Mm-hmm.
You have 1.7 errors per game. Well, now you have like about 0.6 errors per game. And the thing is that there was an emphasis on defense in those days, but guys didn't get to as many balls, and they're not making the plays that they make now. So our defense is better, yeah. I think, so ERAs being low back then, you got all these errors to take into account.
Yeah.
And they're coming off the ERA. So, you got Pitcher with a 2.1 ERA or something, but, his team's making 2 errors a game behind him. And,
Right.
And so,
It's
yeah, it's kind of like they have the thing called fielding independent pitching.
So the comparisons would really be, it wouldn't be absolute, but it'd be pretty good approximations.
Well, I think the good statisticians take those things into account and
yeah.
they make a reasonable assessment of the value of these players against their league or at the time. And I think that the general idea is that all these great players of all eras and all the different leagues that were, the Negro leagues and the, and the major leagues
Right.
at various times and everything, they were all the best players of their era were comparable. They're very good. They're a great athlete
Right.
in 1910 probably would have been a great athlete now.
Yeah.
Some people argue that. Well,
I put Honus Wagner as a shortstop, and as a hitter, and as a base stealer all around. If I wanted, which I sent to you.
Well, he's a good example of a guy with a dead ball era type profile.
Sure.
720 steals.
yeah.
330 something. 80 home runs
Consistent.
and 1,700 RBIs
Yeah.
and 1,800 runs, something like that. I'm just guessing, but those kinds of figures.
You have one more question before we?
Well, yeah, I do. I'm fascinated by this myth concept with Walter Johnson.
Yeah, that's a good little. That's
No,
a good little story. Everybody talks about Walter Johnson as being this kindly man that was afraid he didn't want to hit anybody. So if you crowded the plate on him, you could. Well, sing Ken Burns, baseball, for example.
Yeah,
Really?
a lot
Ty
of
Cobb
revisions.
kind of Stump in Ty Cobb's My Life in Baseball: A True Record, the ghosted book that's supposed to be mostly phony. Said that. Well, I looked up. Hit batsmen by pitchers
Sure.
in Baseball Reference, and except for 2 guys that played in the 19th century and 1 guy whose career ended in 1909, whose name I can't remember, Walter Johnson hit more batsmen than anybody ever, by hundreds.
Interesting.
No one will ever hit as many.
And yet he holds the record of 110 shutouts.
Yeah.
So he obviously has control.
Yeah, but not only that, right? But it's just that everybody lets the ball get. It's just that it's not that
The myth of the Christian gentleman.
You couldn't crowd the plate on him and expect him to pitch, walk you.
Right.
He's going to come. If he's going to come, he's going to come inside. He hit 10 guys a year, just like everybody.
You crowd
did
the
back
plate,
then.
and Okay, we're going to come back with our predictions.